Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started. Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. Here we are for episode 76. And Ani, how are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks, Brian. How are you?
I am feeling ready to roll.
Yeah? What? Why are you ready?
I had just a fantastic morning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's great.
I got my routine cooking.
Yeah. Morning routines.
Morning routines.
Very important.
Yeah.
Something tells me that's what we're talking about today.
Maybe we should talk about morning routines.
We were, last episode, we were talking about resets, and I'm glad that we're talking about morning routines now because I think that those resets are so important. If you didn't listen to last week's episode about resets, make sure you listen to that after this one. Combined with morning routines, I think are really what are going to help our nervous system. And last week we were talking about how much change is going on in the world right now, and also like how stressed we can be and how good things that happen, bad things that happen, just things that happen cause stress. And now more than ever, morning routines are so important.
Yeah, for sure. So really the focus of our podcast today is really how leaders can use morning routines to help their people become more healthy and productive. But, that means everybody's kind of a leader, right? We're self-leaders also, not just leaders of organizations, but ourselves, like leading ourselves, leading our families, leading our communities. So
organizations we're a part of at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that message, Brian, that, all of us are leaders. And I understand what you mean, because leaders that are running teams now more than ever, at least really important to have your own morning routine.
And possibly a morning routine for your team.
Yeah.
Right. Which is also kind of, we have some experience with that. I'd like to kind of share some of those results that we've done with people as well.
That's really a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
So let's just kind of preface this today by saying, like, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about morning routines. Like there's been books written, like
there's whole businesses about
businesses, consulting, so many things. Literally, you kind of do a search on morning routines, and actually, it's kind of interesting when you do a search on. I just searched morning routines.
It's actually a huge search title.
Huge search title, but you know what's really interesting? The results that come back. The results that come back are almost always the morning routines of successful people.
Oh, that makes sense.
How to be successful. And I actually want to dig into that a little bit because it's actually kind of interesting.
People want high performance routines. That's really, I think, why people start to think about morning routines is around high performance.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
From a Somatic Coaching Academy perspective, though, the way I think about morning routines and the way we kind of would think about them here is for me to be a really effective or well-rounded or complete morning routine, it really needs to affect our body and our brain on all three levels, like all three levels of our brain. Right? We have a triune brain. We have our brain stem, we have our limbic system, we have our neocortex. And so whatever our morning routine is, if it's going to be a really complete routine, we need to actually address all levels of our nervous system to actually be a really highly effective routine.
Are you saying that that's different than performance, or you're saying that's why it's similar to looking at morning routines for high performance?
I'm saying sometimes they're a little different. Okay. Because what is success, for instance?
Well, that's a really great question.
So when you say successful people, like, what do you actually mean about that? What does it mean to be successful?
Are beautiful, have lots of money, have fame, status.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually healthy.
I know.
Right? It's kind of what I'm pointing out.
100%. Because you and I both met a lot of people who are out there in that, successful people category that are just a wreck internally.
Yeah, right. So from the kind of the worldly Western model of success, they
Yeah.
might look like they have everything, right? They have successful businesses, they have a lot of money, they
I saw
have
their yachts
a
on
nice
Instagram.
car, they have a yacht, all those things. And so I'm doing my morning routine in order to get the money and the yacht and that kind of stuff. And that's fine. That's great. Like if that's what you really want, that's awesome. I mean, who am I to say? And at the same time, from a Somatic Coaching Academy perspective, what we're talking about is a complete life, a complete routine, so that we have the financial abundance that we want. We've also got the physical health abundance that we want, and we have the relationship abundance that we
We're
want.
not saying that those things have to be separate.
Correct.
What we're saying is that sometimes the success that we see out there in success land is incomplete because it
Exactly.
doesn't include being healthy.
Yeah. And what I think, if I'm going to set up a morning routine, which I do a morning routine every morning, it's really based on this idea of having a complete life. So I can have really, I feel like I have abundance in financially and business wise. I feel like I have abundance health wise, and I feel like I have abundance relationship wise. And so again, we're talking about complete somatic intelligence here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. Like that's a principle we lean into. So why would we advocate anything less than that?
Complete.
Right?
Sure.
It's complete. Exactly. So thanks for joining us. That's our that's our complete podcast for today. Now let's go a little
That
bit.
would be
That would
incomplete.
be incomplete. Incomplete. So let's kind of dig a little bit more into the idea of morning routine. So I think, and I'm curious what you think about this.
I'm so glad. Thanks.
I think every really complete and effective morning routine starts with an evening routine.
Oh, dude, that was my line.
Was it?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead then. You take it.
Every complete morning routine starts with an evening routine. Ah, that was one of my key points, Brian.
So go and build on it. You got it. You got the floor.
Well, I mean, I wake up in the morning, and if I didn't get my act together about what's happening and who I'm going to be, and not just what's happening, right? Because that's one part, but who I'm going to be and how I'm going to show up when I wake up, all bets are off, man.
Mhm.
I am not an easy waker.
Mhm. So
So,
what kind of stuff do you do in the evening that helps you have a better morning routine?
one thing I do is I know what's happening the next day.
Okay, you have a plan.
So I do look at the plan of the what's
Yep.
actually going on.
Hmm.
But then I will think about how I want to approach those things. And I think the high level of intentionality around, like I said, who I want to be and how I want to approach those things is a key part, is the part in being able to then wake up and actualize the life I want to be living.
So let me ask you this question: If when you're doing your planning the night before, because I do the same thing actually, I look at my schedule the night before and go, okay, where am I going to need to be when, sort of thing, just to kind of get a context around that. Depending on what you're doing the next day, does that actually inform your morning routine the next morning?
It can. Yeah, it can. Um, I would in my mind, I would like to have this morning routine that's the same every single morning. I do love routine so much, but that's not feasible for my life with the things that I have going on. So sometimes the morning routine does have to adapt. And I think that's a key part actually to looking ahead
Hmm.
because I will, and this has happened before, wake up and be surprised by the fact that I have to drive somebody to school or something I knew very well, but when I didn't plan ahead, all of a sudden everything gets derailed and things can go off the rails so quickly
Hmm.
once I wake up. We still have one of our kids in the house, and I remember hearing throughout the years to do your morning routine before the kids wake up, which is all well and good, and I get it. One of the interesting things I've had happen throughout the years is when I decide I'm just going to do it earlier, people wake up in the house earlier, which also derails me. But when I can think ahead to the night before, I can actually really prioritize what's important and plan it
Hmm.
in a way that actually works, actually happens.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So for leaders, whether you're leading a family or an organization, um, do you do that? Do you actually kind of look at, and I'm not saying like look at your week or your month, but literally the next day to kind of timestamp and get some context around what's happening the next day. Probably good to do that earlier than right before you go to bed. So like I look at my calendar like probably a couple of hours before I go to bed
I look at it
because
sooner than that.
because I don't want to have like that carried into my sleep
Right.
because I kind of have an
Absolutely.
evening routine that I do too.
No, that doesn't work for me to do it right before bed
Yeah,
either.
that's yeah,
I'll do
that's
it.
not
I'll
good.
do it about an hour before. Generally, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I like what you said too about this idea that am I going to do the same exact thing every morning? And like sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work
Yeah.
because sometimes you got to wake up and catch a flight the next morning.
Totally. I have a
Sometimes you
sweet
got
spot morning routine, but the fact is life comes up.
yeah. So that's why I
So
think
plan
about
for it.
that's why I think about this in the framework of the three parts of the brain. So whatever morning routine I do, I'm including all three parts of my brain. And so with a little mantra we have is body, breath, and vision. So I'm doing something that engages my body, especially around well, for me in the morning, it feels like loosening my body is really important. And then kind of energizing my body is really important. So when I think about the body focus for me, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm actually doing, because if you were to watch me, it might look like I'm doing something kind of differentish every morning, but I'm still following this framework. So I'm doing something body oriented every morning to help up the blood flow, flexibility, whatever it happens to be. Right.
When I see you, it looks like you're doing pretty much the same darn thing every
Well,
day.
I do have like a core part that's the same, but then
Gotcha.
I kind of have other things around that I do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the core part that I do that I it feels great for me. I mean, that feels like it really addresses all three parts of this.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the body part. So that kind of, do you have kind of like a body
Body, absolutely,
focus?
100%. Yeah. You got to include the body in your morning routine.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I um, tell my folks, Brian, a big thing that comes up for clients that I've served is consistency is so hard for folks.
Hmm.
So one of the things I've done to really give permission granted is move your body. That's the point.
Yeah.
Not that you have to consistently do the same thing. Because once you start to just give yourself permission to move your body every day in the morning, all of a sudden that can open up more consistency, more routine, and things like that. I will generally exercise in the morning as a part of my moving my body. Excuse me. And that's a part of what I'm doing right now. Can I say this? Because I think from how I'm conceptualizing morning routines, that potentially is a little bit different than how you conceptualize
Sure.
morning routines, because otherwise everything I'm going to say may not make sense. One of the things I think is important for setting your morning routine is really getting alignment with your purpose.
Well, that's the
So,
V part. Yeah.
what's that?
That's the V part.
That no, for me, how I approach my morning routine is all about, am I getting myself into my purpose
Yeah.
state? So I will move my body almost every single time. And if I am in my morning routine and that doesn't feel like what is going to help me to align with my purpose, my felt quality purpose, then I might shift it, because the number one thing that's important for me is helping to get my soul's agenda state,
Sure. Yeah.
my feeling
Yeah, it
quality
totally
state.
makes sense. So I think I would just kind of say too here. So moving your body, yes, and not moving your body and like watching the news,
Or
right?
reading your
Or reading your
emails.
email, or checking your texts, or checking your Voxers. So that's I think that might be your morning routine, and it might be the morning routine of quote unquote successful people. But we're not talking. That's not a complete morning routine from a somatic intelligence kind of perspective. It's that because we're disconnected from the body when we're checking our email. And so part of the morning routine idea with somatic intelligence is bring everything into alignment so that my body, when I'm using my body, I'm sensing into my body. I'm feeling what's going on in my body. Now, it might feel tight, it might feel loose, it might feel energized, it might feel sluggish, I don't know. But we're sensing into those interoceptive states and proprioceptive states in our body when we're moving our body.
We actually believe that in order to be the person that we want to be in the world, you need to start by centering in yourself. And so as soon as you open up your emails, your text messages, you get involved with your phone, the news, people wake up and they're checking their phones in bed to check the news. Like as soon as you do that, you're putting yourself in a reactive state instead of a responsive state. And so come from your center and be responsive as long as possible
Right.
within the day. And then we actually are leading our lives. We are leading the day. We are leading our teams. Otherwise, we're actually coming from a place of reactivity.
Yeah, exactly.
right away.
Right.
And we don't even know it sometimes.
Yeah. So even for leaders that have a lot of responsibilities, to get up and just check your email first thing actually is destabilizing and very difficult then to be effective and productive the whole day. Whereas what Ani's suggesting we do is just like wait on that and get your nervous system tuned up, like really get stabilized, get a foundational amount of purpose kind of driving inside of your system. And then you can meet the day, and then everything in the day actually becomes you meet it with your purpose, and you're going to do that differently than if you meet it being destabilized, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Can we talk about breath?
Sure. Yep.
So we'd start with body. For me, Brian, I use breath actually as kind of my compass, I guess, because what I do with my body will be informed by how I can get into the breath state that I'm looking for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I will take some time for quiet, which I'll talk about with vision, and breathe. There, I will also a big part of my exercise is about my breath. So I actually won't do like weights and stuff like that and routines and stuff in the morning, but I will go for my run or my walk. And a big part of that is because of the meditative nature of it.
Okay.
By moving my body and getting into the breath, it's really key. So breath is like really, really key with morning routine for me.
Yeah, and me as well. So same thing. When I'm going through my morning body kind of movement practices, I'm always coordinating the breath along with that. And the interesting about the breath is that, and we do a lot of this training in our core centering program. The idea that the breath has direct linkages into the limbic system in our brain, which is our emotional regulation centers. So breath and emotional regulation have a lot to do with one another. And oftentimes, you've heard people when they get upset, they say, take a deep breath. And that's a great idea.
Go for a walk.
However, it's kind of like imagining you're just going to go into the weight room and try to lift the heaviest weight that you can lift the first time. Whereas if you train regularly in the weight room, then you can go in and perform really well in there. So that's the idea of incorporating breath every day into your morning routine, is it actually helps you create more emotional regulation, whether you realize it or not. And I think we can all agree here that as a leader of an organization or a family, life is a lot better when everyone around us, and including us, are emotionally regulated.
That goes back to being responsive rather than reactionary.
Right.
So when you're training your system, your nervous system, to be in a place of responsiveness, and you can do that through the breath.
Yep, exactly. So body and breath. Okay, you want to take the last bit of the framework?
Well, I was just saying that a sense of quiescence. You were pointing back when I was talking about purpose to vision. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. For my like vision place, I usually don't get super visual. For me, it's more of a felt quality anchoring for my vision to get in touch with my purpose. And that happens through a state of quiet. So no matter what I do for my morning routine, there will be some kind of pause, quiet, and meditation, some kind of meditation aspect to it every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's after that your mind can like rest and really be focused.
Yeah. So, when I teach this more deeply in programs, it's actually BBV3. That there's actually kind of three ways you can think about vision. You can think of vision, like actually what you're doing with your eyes, where you're looking, visualization, kind of what you're imaging, and then throw in as vantage, which is kind of like what you're focusing on. So for you, your vantage is to go into that quiet state.
Yep.
Right. To kind of bring in that sense of quiescence.
Yeah. And that to me anchors my purpose.
Yeah. Right. So that's that. So then that's a complete, from again, somatic intelligence perspective, right? That's a complete somatic intelligence morning routine, because you've got all three of those parts in there. And then that's training your nervous system to be able to meet the day in a way where you can be responsive, not reactive, because you have a higher level of intuitive, interoceptive kind of experience going on, where you can really better align what you're feeling and how you think and what you decide to do.
From a high performance standpoint, visualization of what's coming, like what you're going to do that day, can be a really important success tactic. And it's a great place to do it, to actually visualize whatever it is that you're going to be doing that day and see yourself
Yep.
doing it exactly how you want it.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's all kinds of ways you can tap into that last bit of the visualization, and all of them are effective. It just really determines what kind of goal, what you're kind of looking for, what kind of outcome. How do you want to set up your day? Because that's really what the morning routine is all about. It's like, how do I want to set the tone for the day, the tone for the day. And is today a day where it's important that I'm very calm and settled? Is today kind of day where it's important that I'm excited? So, like, for instance, when I travel and teach, and I'm teaching like all day long for 2 days, it's really important to me to feel like I'm energized.
Yeah.
Right. To really show up fully. Like that's a promise I make to everybody in the room. I say, hey, I'm going to give you everything I have today. And like, I'm just going to show up fully. And all I ask is that you participate, like just ask questions. And it always like, there's always a great kind of tone during the course of the day. So those morning routines, my intention is to be energized during the day. Right. Other days where I have maybe some meetings that are a little more serious, let's say, then my intention for that day is probably going to be calm and settled and curious and be able to listen. So again, for me, depending on what I'm doing, I'll set the tone differently for the day, and my morning routine will shift a little bit. But what won't shift is body, breath, and vision. Like that's a part of the framework of everything that I do. I'm just using that to kind of create that tone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you said you wanted to talk about morning routines for teens.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a few years ago, actually kind of several years ago now, we were hired by the third largest lime manufacturing company in the world. And so we got hired locally. There was a mine and processing center in our area here in the Adirondacks that reached out to me as a PT. They found me somehow. I mean, that's actually a long and very kind of cool and interesting story, but we don't have time to do here. It's kind of one of those universal kind of synchronistic kind of situations. Anyway, they called me and asked me if I could come up and talk with the manager of the production team about injuries that they're having on the production team. So in the mining industry, there's something called MSHA, well, OSHA, which most people understand. Like that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and they make sure that in the working world that people are safe. So in the mining industry, it's called MSHA. It's a different organization, and they're way more strict than OSHA is. Because in the mining industry,
Well, yeah, you could
people could
die.
die, right? I mean, it's like there's a lot of heavy equipment, all that kind of stuff. So they had a very high incidence of what they call reportable injuries. In other words, people getting injured on the work and then not being able to come back to work the next day, and that's called a reportable injury. And in the mining industry, those reportable injuries are big dings on like their MSHA rating, and they get fined on those things for every day someone's out for longer. It costs a lot of money. In other words, to have people have reportable injuries. So they were having way more than they wanted to have. So they brought a PT in and said, actually, it's funny. They had just purchased a video program of a morning stretching program. And they said, "What do you think of this?" And I looked at it and I laughed. I was like, I can't. If you guys want to do this, go ahead. If you're asking me to consult on it, I think this is not going to probably going to work. It was a woman, in a middle-aged woman, very pleasant to look at in tights and leotards, like with music, and they're going to put this video on
A
for a
bunch of
bunch of
minors.
miners. Not miners like young people,
Right.
but like men that have been digging in the rocks and breaking rocks for their whole life and like working on machines and using diggers and backhoes and that kind of ukes driving these massive. And I'm like, I don't think so.
That's
My
hilarious.
guess is it's probably not going to land well. And so they said, well, what do you think you could do? And I said, well, I think I can design a program that's better. And I said, I think I could do it in under 10 minutes. Would that work for you to do with your teams in the morning? And they're like, yeah, we could do under 10 minutes because they don't have a lot of time in the morning. They get in, they punch the clock, they do a quick meeting, they get to work, right? Because productivity is so important. And so I actually went on site and followed the guys around for a while to see what they did, to see how they moved, how they turned, what they drove, where they sat. I talked with them about what they felt like in their bodies, what kind of tight tight muscles. I actually did a little screening with them, and then I went back to my little laboratory and created a 10 move morning movement routine that took 8 minutes long. So it became what we call the 8 minute dynamic warm up, and it had all three parts: it had a body part, a breath part, and a visualization part. and I took it in and I trained everybody on it. I trained some team leaders to do it with their people. And within 6 months, their reportable injuries went to zero. And they calculate how much money, I don't exactly remember the numbers, but saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars year after year after year. And it worked so well that they actually sent me around North America and Canada to train all the other facilities in North America and Canada on this 8-minute dynamic warm up. So I would go out to these places for, a week or 10 days or something and train everybody on the routine, and then go through and do assessments with all the workers to modify for them and make sure it was going to work for them and that kind of stuff. And it was interesting because not all the plants adopted that morning routine equally. Some plants like really got into it and their reportables dropped off. And other plants didn't get into as much and they didn't see as much of a change. So we definitely saw that adding in morning routines to the work teams on this body, breath, and vision framework had really important and positive results on the team's productivity, on their health, on their ability to connect, all those sorts of things. And then they kept bringing me back to actually keep up leveling on nutrition. And we did a lot of mindfulness practices with these guys. We wove them in ways that made sense for them. And it was really a really fun ride to do that with that. Since then, the CEO changed hands and they kind of changed their focus a little bit around health and wellness. And the people I've talked to that are still in the system have seen a massive, again, increase again in the injuries, just because the leadership hasn't actually advocated for morning routines anymore in that process. We've kind of seen like a whole roller coaster of how effective it is when you do these things and how you actually lose those effects when you don't do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we also added these routines in not just for the manufacturing teams, but also in the office teams as well. So both the admin teams and in the production teams.
Yeah, we've seen graduates of our level 1 program create and run core centering morning routines for their teams, or to help lead teams in morning routines. That, I mean, your story points towards safety and manual laborers, but no matter who,
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to loosen up your body or you're really just trying to have better meetings and
Yeah.
more productive, lighthearted team camaraderie and engagement. We've seen morning routines work for all of those things.
Yeah, they set the tone for the day. So as the leader in your organization, you set the tone for the day. What tone do you want to set for your teams and for your organization so that your people step into that tone? And as a leader of our organization, it's important for me to set my tone for the day and Ani to set her tone for the day so that we can actually set that tone for our teams, for our contractors, for our faculty that do a lot of work with us as well. And we see this in teams that we work with as well as consulting.
Yeah, I hear about all kinds of crazy stuff that happens with teams every single day, Brian, in my work with clients that I'm working with and stuff, and teams that I'm working with, and we never have problems on our work. We have like the smoothest team around.
So grateful for our faculty and our team. Just amazing.
It's so smooth, and I'm sure that a large part of that is because of our consistent practice with our morning routine and how we show up.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're a leader who's like, my God, I would love to be able to set a strong tone, whatever that tone is, every day in my organization, then, hey, consider joining us for our next core centering training, which is happening at Kripalu from May 18th to 22nd. And we do core centering also virtually throughout the year. So you can just check out the link for that on the page. But for yourself, or send one of your key deputies or key directors to learn how to set up these morning routines for your teams and for your programs.
Yeah.
You don't have to lead these for yourself.
Yeah, that's a
You
great
can
point.
send someone who can actually learn to do this, and then they can turn around and lead your teams, be able to set that tone every day. At a minimum, as a leader, you need to have your own morning routine that is a complete and kind of holistic, and then also develop that for your teams as well.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be weird. And people actually, we get this question way less than we used to, but what are people going to think? People are going to think it's great and they're going to thank you for it.
Yeah.
So that's what they're going to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great example, Brian. Thanks for sharing that with us. And thanks for listening today. We will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.